America in the 1920s and 30s, Prohibition turned liquor into gold and ambition into power. In hidden bars and back rooms, bootleggers, mobsters, and mafia bosses built empires beyond the law. Their names carried fear and fascination, their reach stretching from smoky clubs to City Hall. AcademyofShorts brings these figures back to life, uncovering the rise and fall of organized crime's most powerful icons. Step into the shadows of history, where the legends of the Prohibition era still breathe. They called him lucky, but luck had nothing to do with it. Born Salvatore Lucania, he crawled from the back alleys of New York's Lower East Side to the very top of America's underworld. He didn't just run rackets, he rewrote the rules. Luciano built the first true national crime syndicate, turning street gangs into a ruthless, money-making empire. Cunning, charming, and cold-blooded, he survived knife fights, rival hits, even prison, always a step ahead, always in the shadows. Was he a criminal genius or the devil in a tailored suit? To this day, the name Lucky Luciano whispers through the history of organized crime, half legend, half warning. They called him Dutch Schultz, the beer baron of the Bronx. But behind the nickname was Arthur Fliegenheimer, a kid from the slums who muscled his way into the Prohibition gold rush. Schultz didn't just sell liquor. He built a bootlegging empire and ruled it with a trigger finger and an iron will. He paid off cops, crushed rivals, and left a trail of bodies in his wake. Even the mob found him too unpredictable, too dangerous. And when the law finally cornered him, Schultz didn't beg. He went down the way he'd lived, defiant, whispering a dying monologue that still baffles historians. Dutch Schultz, gangster, madman, legend, a name that echoes through the dark alleys of America's underworld. They called him Joe the Boss, but his real name was Giuseppe Masseria. In the roaring chaos of Prohibition New York, Masseria ruled the Italian underworld like a king without a crown. He built an empire of speakeasies and rackets, keeping politicians and cops in his pocket, daring anyone to challenge him. But power draws blood. A young upstart named Lucky Luciano watched and waited. The gangland streets turned into a silent battlefield, betrayal hiding behind every handshake. In 1931, Masseria's reign ended in a quiet Coney Island restaurant. 4 gunmen, 1 game of cards, and a sudden storm of bullets. Joe the Boss fell, and with him the old order of the American Mafia. His death marked the birth of a new, darker era, one that still casts a shadow today. They called him the Fox, but no one really knew how deep his cunning ran. Johnny Torrio wasn't the loudest gangster in Chicago. He was the quiet one, the one you never saw coming. While others spilled blood in the streets, Torrio built an empire of bootleg liquor and gambling with a smile and handshake. He taught a young Al Capone that brains, not bullets, win real power. When the guns finally turned on him, Torrio did what no one expected. He vanished, rich and alive. In a world where every kingpin ended in a pool of blood, the Fox walked away and left behind a legend that still whispers through the dark alleys of Chicago. They called him the Prime Minister of the Underworld, but Frank Costello never needed a crown. From the smoky back rooms of New York politics, he ruled with a quiet power more dangerous than any Tommy gun. Costello turned bribes into policy and gangsters into gentlemen, making the city dance without ever raising his voice. While rivals fired bullets, he bought influence, judges, cops, even senators. When the government finally dragged him before the cameras, he didn't flinch. He simply refused to answer, and the legend only grew. Frank Costello proved that in the Mafia's golden age, the sharpest weapon wasn't fear, it was invisible power. They called him Bugsy, but never to his face. Benjamin Siegel was charm and chaos wrapped in a tailored suit, a man who could light up a room or empty it with a glance. In New York, he ran with Lucky Luciano's crew, turning Prohibition blood money into power. But it was the desert that made his legend. Siegel dreamed of a glittering oasis in the Nevada sand, a city of neon and sin. The flamingo rose from his vision and his obsession. But dreams cost, and in the underworld, debts are paid in blood. One summer night in 1947, Bugsy Siegel met the price, his empire of lights forever stained by a sudden burst of gunfire. The man who gave birth to Las Vegas became its first ghost. They called him the mob's accountant, but Meyer Lansky was far more than a man with numbers. From New York's Lower East Side, he built a gambling empire that stretched from Havana to Las Vegas. Lansky never fired a shot. He didn't need to. While others made headlines with bullets, he quietly pulled the strings, outsmarting the FBI for decades. Even in old age, they hunted him, but his fortune and his secrets remained untouchable. In the mob's golden age, Meyer Lansky proved the mind is the deadliest weapon of all. His legend still whispers through the dark corners of organized crime. They called him Scarface, but to Chicago he was simply the boss. Al Capone turned Prohibition into a gold mine, running booze, gambling, and vice with a ruthless efficiency that even the law couldn't match. He bribed cops, charmed reporters, and made himself a celebrity, part gangster, part folk hero. But behind the tailored suits and broad smile was a man who ruled with bullets and fear. When the empire finally cracked, it wasn't a rival's gun that brought him down, but the quiet power of the taxman. Al Capone, at once legend and cautionary tale, proved that even kings of the underworld can fall to paper and ink. The age of the mobsters was more than crime. It was a storm that reshaped America. From the smoky speakeasies of Prohibition to the glittering casinos of Las Vegas, gangsters like Luciano, Capone, Lansky, and their rivals built empires on bootleg liquor, gambling, and fear. For a time, they ruled the streets, buying politicians and outsmarting the law. But power that burns so bright never lasts. Federal crackdowns, betrayals, and time itself brought their empires to a slow, inevitable decline. Their stories remain, half legend, half warning, echoes of a time when ambition and danger walked hand in hand. If you enjoyed this journey through the golden age of the American underworld, join us for more. Subscribe, share, and help keep these tales alive so we can keep exploring the rise and fall of the most interesting people and eras in history. Thanks for watching.